Om Namah Pranavartaya Shuddha Jnanaika Murtaye Nirmalaya Prasantaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Arunagiri Mupetam Sachidananda Murtim Ramana Yati Prithivyam Vishrutam Jnana Suryam Gahana Hridaya Vidyam Leelaya Bodhayantam Satatam Ahamameyam Sadgurum Samsmarami. My pranams. We'll continue with our study of Devi Kalottaram. Last time we stopped at the verse 18. Bahischittam nivaryaiva kopi lokena sidati. Parameshwara tells Parvati, Bahischittam, the mind that is of the outgoing nature, that has to be curtailed. Bring it back and put it in the heart. That's your home. Kopi lokena sidati. When this is done, there is no suffering at all. So he's saying, shelter at home. Don't go out. The pandemic of samsaram is there outside. It will catch you. So come back and stay at home. And we will see the next verse. After talking about Bahischittam Nivaryaiva, is taking a different tack. The next verse, he says, Natra kinchit bahihi. There is no outside. Natra kinchit bahihi na antaha. Na madhyam na pyadaha kvachit. Sarvakaram nirakaram. Swasambedyam virajate. In Bhagavan's translation. Ul, veli, mel, keel, nadu, dikkuor, siridi mindriye, ulla uru, ellamai, or uruvum illadai, tan tanakke vedyamai, tane ilangidumal, poondramam ondru punar. The translation exceeds the original, far exceeds the original in beauty. He says, Atra, here, that is in this path, when you are going after the Purna Vastu, na kinchit bahihi, there is nothing outside from this Purna Vastu. When there is a shape, when there is a form, you can talk about an inner and an outer. But this is totally, there is nothing inside, nothing outside, because there is no form. Totally no form at all. He says, Bahihi na antaha na madhyam na pi adaha kvachit. There is no low, there is no higher. There is nothing above, there is nothing below. Sarvakaram nirakaram. He takes all these forms. All the forms are his only. But he is formless himself. Nirakaram. Swasamvedyam virajate. Swasamvedyam. Tane tan tanakke vedyamai. Vedyam is to be known. That which is known is vedyam. Swasamvedyam. Samvedyam, well known. Swasamvedyam, well known to oneself. That's what he says. In this is it's a very profound verse. And this follows the Upanishad Vakyam. In Chandogya Upanishad, there is this particular statement. Eva atmaiva adhaha tadatma uparishtat atma paschat atma purastat atma dakshinataha atma uttarataha atmaivedam sarvamiti, says the Chandogya Upanishad, saying that it is all pervasive. So this is the Swarupa Lakshanam of Atma that is being given in this. The Swarupa Lakshanam. There is nothing inner, there is nothing outside. As I said, when there is a form, you can think of something that is inside the form and there is something outside the form. This is formless. So if it were to have a form, then where will it stay? It has to require some space to stay. The form requires a formless space to stay. So ultimately what it means is that formless space is also not apart from him. The formless space where it has to stay, if it were to have a form, also not apart from him. So what it ultimately means is that it is formless. If it has a form, it will have the limitations of space and time. It has to be confined in a space, within a time. When it has got no limitations at all, it has got to be formless. Only in that case, it cannot be confined into space or time. So he says it is sarvakaram. It is there everywhere, but it is formless. But the most important word in this is swasamvedyam. Tan tanakke vedyamai, says Bhagavan. Swasamvedyam. It's a beautiful, evocative word. It can trigger somebody to go deep into contemplation, because what Bhagavan says is, it cannot have another knowledge to know it. If there is a lamp, that lamp can be used to illuminate all the objects around. But for illuminating or for seeing the lamp, you don't need another lamp. The lamp itself, you can see the lamp by its glow. So similarly, consciousness is something that is self-illuminating. You don't need another consciousness to illuminate it. There is only one consciousness. You don't need anything else to do this, to illuminate it. And when we talk about knowing something, what we really talk about is the objective knowledge. All our knowledge is only objective knowledge. Only through the mind and the intellect we gather our knowledge. The sources of knowledge are dealt with very beautifully in our Shastras, in all our 6 systems of philosophy. They're all called as pramanam. Pramanam is that which is a valid study of that which is a valid source of knowledge. In the Western philosophy, they call it as epistemology. Sources of knowledge. How do you know that you know? And what is the proof of your knowledge? Is there any valid proof of your knowledge? These are the questions that are asked and answered. All these are called as pramanam. All these sources of knowledge are called as pramanam. And as I said, these are all for the objective knowledge, but Vedanta also uses it to build the Siddhantam around it. So these pramanas are generally, pratyaksha pramanam, something that is directly perceptible to you, that is pratyaksham. But the very fact that aksham is used is, it shows that what is gathered through the indriyas, through the senses. Akshi, this I, is just a representative of all other senses also. Whatever is gathered through the senses, that is called as pratyaksha pramanam. And then comes anumana pramanam. You can infer. You may not see anything, but you can infer. When you know there are 2 things together always, when one is present, the other one is inferred, because you know that they're all together all the time. The normal example that is given is the fire and the smoke. There is a fire behind a mountain, and from the mountain's shikaram, you see the smoke coming up. You do not see the fire because it is hidden by the mountain, but still you can infer there must be fire. Otherwise, there cannot be any smoke. This is known as anumana pramanam. You can infer things. Then the next pramanam is upamana pramanam. You can compare. Similar to this inference, you can compare. This happens in this manner. This also is happening in the same way. So we can assume that the results will also be in this manner. So you gather some knowledge. That is upamana pramanam. Then comes a shabda pramanam. Shabda pramanam is the verbal testimony. Vedas are generally taken as the shabda pramanas, or the sage's words. Somebody who has experienced it. His words are equally valid as a source of knowledge. Otherwise, we will not know anything at all. So, Shabda Pramanam is very important. And then they say Arthapatti. Arthapatti is a Pramanam. What it means is you assume something. Arthapatti means presumption. You assume something, and then you see the result, and the result does not match with what you really originally wanted, you change the assumption till it matches what you want to do. This is one way of gathering information. And finally, there is another pramanam. Interestingly, it is absence of an activity. Absence of something is also knowledge. Anupalabdhi, they say. That it's an absence of something. Absence of knowledge is also knowledge. And there are a lot of examples which we have seen. Some of them we have seen. But I am tempted to give a very unvedantic example. Kindly forgive me. When I was in school, we used to read a lot of detective stories, and stories of Sherlock Holmes used to be very popular in those days. A great detective, and his deducing capabilities are immense, and so on. So there is one story. It's titled as The Dog That Did Not Bark. That is the name of the story. The dog did not bark. It's an absence of an activity. A crime takes place and a dog is found present there all the time. A crime has taken place. So the detective goes to find out what's going on, and he asks everybody, did you hear the dog bark? And everybody says, no, we did not hear the dog bark at all. This absence of this activity gives him the clue that the person who committed the crime is not a stranger to the dog. Dog knows him. So then he eliminates one by one, and then finally he finds out that Anupalabdhi, this absence of knowledge, can be a very valid clue. So all these pramanas are taken in our shastras for establishing what is the proof of your knowledge. But then, having said all these things, what Vedanta says is, in fact, this is used by all the religions also, our Oriental religions. The Charvaka religion, which is a totally materialistic religion, they say that nothing beyond this life. Why are you worried about a God? Eat, drink, make merry, nothing more is going to be there for you. What we call as materialism today, it was existing, and he was also called as a Maharshi. Charvaka Maharshi, he was called. Charuvakam is, very, very attractive words are uttered by them. So we have to really struggle, nothing is there. Enjoy. The Charvakas, they accept only the first pramanam, which is the Pratyaksha pramanam. What I see, only I will believe. I'm not going to believe anything beyond what I see or what I experience. The Buddhism, it takes this Pratyaksha pramanam and also the Anumana pramanam, accepts. And Jainism, it accepts the third one also, which is Shabda pramanam. It accepts. No, the rishis, they say something, we will accept it, and so on. And Vedanta and Yoga Shastra, Hatha Yogam, they both of them accept all the 6 pramanas. But having said all these things, what Vedanta says is, all these are valid in gathering knowledge, which is of objective nature. They will not work when you have to go after the subject, the very subject of everything. They will not work. So if all these things, after having discussed all these things, you are going to say that all these doors are closed for you, then is there no hope at all for us to really learn that? Is the question that comes to us. That's when this Swasamvedyam comes. It says, no, there is a very big hope available to you. There is a very big door available to you. It's open all the time. That is, it knows itself quite well. There is a self-knowledge all the time present. All the time it knows itself. So that is the clue for you to catch hold of this. This knowledge is available to you. It radiates its presence all the time. It is available all the time. Never absent. Catch hold of that. That is, you can know yourself by yourself. You don't really, in fact, others, pramanam, you do not really need at all. None of us really need to know whether I am existing or not by asking somebody else. It's not. I know that I am available. And this is pratyaksham. Actually, this is the only thing that is pratyaksham. This is the only valid thing. It's directly, immediately available to you. So, Swasamvedyam is a very important, topic to really understand. So, as I was saying, This Swasamvedyam, actually, T.M.P. Mahadevan, he wrote a book which is a commentary on Ulladu Narpadu. It's one of the very most authentic commentaries on Bhagavan's Ulladu Narpadu in English. He says in the introduction, he says, though the self escapes all objectification, though it escapes all objectification, it does not escape certainty, he says. Beautiful way. It does not escape certainty, which means that it is certain. And that's the one hope available for us, and that is the one way that we have got to catch hold of the self. That's what he says. Bhagavan goes a little beyond this. So he says about the certainty of that knowledge. Atma Vidya Kirtanam, the very beginning sentences in Atma Vidya Kirtanam, we all know. He said, Ayye Ati Sulabham Anma Vidyayalle Ati Sulabham. He goes on to say, Noyartamako Molangaya Malahakani Puya Yojiyamihu Meya Yuladanma. Ayye Ati Sulabham. What he says here is, Noyar, those who are weak-minded, ignorant people, they may not know anything at all. But he knows about himself, about his own existence. He may not know anything at all, but he knows about himself. His own existence is undeniable. It's an infallible kind of a fact available to him. Noyar tamakum, all this, even the weak-minded people, that's what it means. Ulam kai amalahakkani. Amalakam is actually gooseberry. We call it in Tamil nellikkani. Ullangai nellikkani pole is a phrase in Tamil. It's supposed to be the golden standard for establishing a certain proof of something. You have a gooseberry in your palm. It is there in your palm. You are able to look at it. You are able to feel it. You are able to grip it. It is there. What more can be a measure of the certain existence of that particular gooseberry in your hand? That's the standard. Here Bhagavan says, even that pales into insignificance. Puyai Odiya. He says, even that can be called as a lie in front of this Purna Satyam that is there, effulgently glowing all the time within you. This Puyai Odiya, Meyyai Uladu Atma, he says. And that's how he begins, and then he establishes Atma Vidyai. This is the most easy thing. All the charanams, if you really see, go Pallavi, Anupallavi, Charanam, it's one of the most beautiful creations. Profound poetry, profound meaning also at the same time. So he says that this one thing, Swasamvedyam, is enough for you to catch hold of that, and then so don't leave it. As T.M.P. Mahadevan says, it cannot escape certainty. It is there with you all the time. Only we do not notice it. What is required is to notice it. It cannot leave you. It's not possible for Atma not to be present anywhere at any time. Non-existence is impossible, inconceivable. It is there. So why are we not able to see that? The door that is so well open, there is a curtain before that. We have thrown a curtain. The curtain called us the mind. We are not able to look behind the mind. That is the problem. So Bhagavan says, it is already available. That is why it is Sulabham. You don't have to go and then learn something new. It is with you all the time. You need to look at it. You need to pay attention to it. That's all required. That is required. So you do not really get anything new. The ignorance that is hiding it, that is concealing it, that ignorance has to be removed. So all your sadhana is for the removal of this ignorance and not for getting that. That is already available. What is already available is what we are going to get. In Vedanta, this kind of a paradoxical existence, they call it as praptasya praptihi. What is attained has to be attained again. What is already attained, you are trying to attain that. Praptasya praptihi. So, this is the nature of the Atma. The entire Atma Lakshanam is described by Ishvara in this verse. There is nothing above, there is nothing below. It is there everywhere. Jagatyam Jagat, says the Ishavasya Upanishad. Every atom, every cell, every nanoparticle is pervaded by this. It is there everywhere, and it is formless. It has taken all the form. It becomes the support of all the forms, but by itself, it is formless. I know there is an interesting incident associated with Bhagavan. There was a devotee by name Varadachari. This is mentioned in the Self-Realization by B.V. Narasimha Swami. This Varadachari used to go to see Bhagavan. He was in the hills at that time. Before he came down to the ashram, every day he used to go and then have darshan of Bhagavan. I had a neighbor, and accidentally I came to know in Hyderabad that my neighbor's father was the son of this Varadachari. And he says, I remember being carried by my father on his shoulders. When I heard that, I was so thrilled. So many years back, many years back, but it was such a thrilling thing to know that he was carried by this Varadacharya. Anyway, let us listen to this Varadacharya's experience. He used to go and meet Bhagavan, and I believe he had, when he saw him, maybe it was Skandashramam, I think, because behind Bhagavan's place where he was sitting, that particular platform, there was a picture of Dattatreya. That's what he says. Picture of Dattatreya, and Dattatreya is followed by Vaishnavites also. And he had 4 questions in his mind. He wanted to ask Bhagavan whether the Theosophical Society was doing a good job. That was one question. And 2 other questions, I don't remember them. The final question was, what is your real form, Bhagavan? It seems there were some people sitting in front of Bhagavan, but so he was not willing to verbalize his questions. He was just sitting and keeping the questions in his mind. One by one, everybody left. But one of them had asked a question. It was Theosophical Society kind of a truth. And Bhagavan, I believe, made a remark that they are doing a good job. So he got the answer. His opinion about Theosophical Society, he got. Then finally, without really, vocalizing his doubt, they're all in the mind only. The last question was remaining, and that was, what is your real form? And suddenly he found in front of him Bhagavan disappearing. Disappeared totally. And his form slowly merged with a background photo of Dattatreya. This man could not believe. In fact, he was afraid. That experience made him afraid. And then, he kind of kept on blinking his eyes and then trying to see whether he was sleeping or not and all that. And slowly, after 1 or 2 minutes, I believe, the form came back again. So that kind of a thing he has recorded in the Self-Realization in B.V. Narasimha Swami, the experience. He says, on that week, immediately he left the place. He was not able to bear that vision. So it took a lot of courage for him to come back again to Bhagavan to ask, Bhagavan, this is what happened at that time. So since Bhagavan told him, you wanted to know my form, so you had that experience. So, Sarvakaram, Nirakaram, Sambhedyam, Virajate. He is ensconced in such a state. His Lakshanam is this Virajate. He says, Tane Ilangidumal Pundramam Ondru Punar is an additional sentence that Bhagavan adds in the translation. That is Purnam. It is a Purna Vastu. Thank you. It is a Purna Vastu, and then become one with that Purna Vastu. Was not there, is not there in the original, but Bhagavan has added that this is Purna Vastu. In Upadesha Saram, Bhagavan says, Kim Svarupamit Yatma Darishane Avyaya Abhava Purna Chit Sukham. Avyaya, the same thing that is there. Bhagavan expresses that in a different word, Avyayam. It does not really decay at all. Abhava, it is not born at all. Purna Chit Sukham. That's what it is, he says. This verse does not say how to reach that, but he has included that also in his short verse, Bhagavan. Kim Svarupamiti Atma Darishane. So that method of reaching that Purna Chitsukam is also given in that short verse in Upadesha Saram by Bhagavan. So that is the import of this verse. Sarvakaram, Nirakaram, Sva Samvedyam Virajate, says. The next verse. Yadyat alokya yo jantuhu kurute karma sanchayam. Sanchayam. Sanchi is a word, the Telugu word, and also it's a Sanskrit word. It means a bag. And in fact, we use it in other South Indian languages also. Sanchayam. Actually, we have all our prarabdha karmas and other things put in a bag. That's what it says. All the karmas, they go into sanchita karma. And a portion of it will come as prarabdha karma in this life. And whatever we do here will get added to the sanchi. And then finally in the next life, we have a new life, a new body, and then some portion of the entire accumulated karma will be given to you. And then we have to go through that thing. That's what our philosophy says. So, kurute karma sanchayam, he says, yadyat alokya yo jantuhu, kurute karma sanchayam, tadgatir jayate yasmat niralokam tu chintayet. And Bhagavan's translation, எவ்வெதன் திருஷ்டியால் எவ்வுயிர் செய்யும் தொழில்கள் அவ்வுயிர்க்கு அக்கதி உண்டாதலால் எவ்வம். Evam is an interesting Tamil word. Bhagavan uses this word which means dosham, kurai, shortcoming. Evam ara avai saradu. They all have some dosham or the other. That's what it says here. Evam ara avai saradu ayal drishti atru. Without any, you don't have to know anything other than yourself. Ayal drishti atru niralokam tane nirai. Niralokam is that which cannot be seen. So the instruction is meditate on that which cannot be seen. How else to express all these things? So that's why they resort to such kind of a language. Yadyat alokya yo jantuhu. All of us get involved in some activity or the other with something in our minds. We're not. We want to do something in order to get something. Ultimately, that is, if you analyze it, that's what our life is. And he says, Ishvara says, because of this, there is a dosha. Because whatever you do will give you the result, you enjoy the result. But if it ends there, then there's no problem at all. You asked for something, you got something, you enjoyed it, whole thing is over. But they leave a seed behind. The seed called vasanas. This is what Upadesha Saram begins with that. There is a seed with, there is a seed that is left behind, and that seed fructifies into more actions, and you get into newer and newer circumstances. You take a new birth to enjoy the karma for which you have, you wanted some result. So it goes into a big cycle. Kriti mahodadhav, Vinaikadal, Kriti mahodadhav. This is a cycle that we cannot break. So Ishvara says, be careful about what kind of an activity you take up. Something had to be done by you. But do it without any kartritva bhava. Moment you start thinking that I am the doer, you will also become the enjoyer. It is inevitable. The doer is also the enjoyer. It may not come immediately. It may come much later. Suddenly we may get a jackpot also because of what we did several janmas earlier. Anything may happen. So these things go on, and you think that you have a control over all these things. No, you don't have a control. Even the fruits of your actions, you don't have any control. Kartuhu Ajnaya. Only by the Karta's Ajna you get your palam. So he says here, Ishvara says, Yadyat alokya. Whatever you want, you have something in mind, you try to do something, and then you keep on accumulating all these karmas. Tadgatir jayate. And you take a course of action and you get into a new body, a new life, and a tadgatihi, a new path comes to you, a new way of life comes to you. Yasmat niralokam tu chintayet. His advice is, keep your mind on that which cannot be seen. Niralokam tu chintayet. He says, actually this is Upanishad Vakyam. Tad brahmaham iti dhyatva Brahma sampadyate dhruvam. When you think of Brahman, you become Brahman. Yad bhavam tad bhavati, we say. Whatever you think of, you become that. If the meditation is very, very intense, it's just still meditation. It is done by the mind. Talking about an activity of the mind. Manah karyam. So, this particular manah karyam or the dhyanam that is going to, if it is intense, then immediately you can see that you are moving towards the object of meditation. So what is suggested here is, if your object of meditation happens to be Brahman, you can become Brahman. But this is still a dualistic language. There is something other than you, and I want to get that, and I want to meditate on that. All this is the yoga margam, the upasana margam, a dualistic margam. Bhagavan talks about the same thing in his own characteristic style, in a non-dualistic way, and that too using the Bhakti Margam. The Ashtakam, the third verse in Ashtakam, he says, Un Uru, he's talking to Arunachala, Un Uru, your Swarupam, Unal Ara Unnida. Unal Ara Unnida is thinking without thinking. Same way, same language he uses. Unal Ara Unnida. How do you think without thinking? Actually, what it means is, don't keep anything in the mind. Empty the mind of everything. That's what is meant. But the language that is used is Unalara Unnida. Munnir Uru. Munnir means Samudram, an ocean. Uru is a Vallina Uru. Ra. You get into that ocean. What gets into the ocean? Sarukkarai Uruvena Uru Oyim Sarkare. The sugar doll goes into the ocean and dissolves itself. So the jiva does not remain there. That form does not remain there. It's a pure non-dualistic language Bhagavan uses, using the Bhakti Margam. He says, people complain that Vedantins, they say that the jiva becomes Brahman. How is it possible? People argue. All you people say that, you can become God. We cannot understand that. So Bhagavan gives a reply to them. Actually, Vedanta is much more, supportive of the Bhakti Marga. Just listen to me, he says. The jiva does not become Brahman. The jiva becomes absent. He dissolves himself. He dissolves himself like this Sarkarai Uru, this sugar doll, which went and joined the ocean, merged in the ocean. Like that, the jiva will have to completely dissolve himself in your love and then totally lose his own identity. So constantly dwelling on your nature, unalara unnida, constantly dwell on your nature without thoughts, is to lose one's identity without any thoughts, constantly dwell. What it means is abide in that. There is this pure awareness of being constantly radiating from within. Just notice that. Abide as that. Don't allow any thoughts to rise during the time of abidance. Abide in that. Slowly, you will be able to reach a state of no form. Ai patatyaham nija vicharanam, he says. Ai patati. This ego, the mind which wanted to do all these things, finally finds itself totally absent. And that is the final mukti. So he says here, to lose one's identity like a sugar doll in the ocean. This is what he says in Ashtakam. In Atma Sakshatkaram, there is a very similar verse. Why I am saying all this is because Bhagavan once remarked, when somebody asked Bhagavan, what is all this language that you are saying that, it is to be an unthought thought? Ninayamal ninaipadu, karudamal karuduvadu, all this language we are not able to understand. How else we can express this? This most subtle thing that we are talking about. Your form has to become subtler and subtler and subtler. So how do we really say this? We cannot say, do you think about it? It is very gross. Thinking is a very gross thing. It is very solid compared to that. Sukshma Rupam. Thinking itself is a very solid thing. So we have to do that. So, and when he has translated this Atma Sakshatkaram, which is the second portion of Devi Kalottaram, the other Agamam, there is a phrase which says, Achintyam chintayet nityam. Achintyam, that which cannot be thought of, chintayet nityam, constantly have this nirakara dhyanam, kritva chittam nirashrayam, chittam kritva nirashrayam. In your, the solution comes here, chittam, our mind should not have any ashrayam at all. Ashrayam is a support, a prop, something that you depend upon. No, remove everything. Make the mind totally empty. That kind of a meditation will take you there, where the jiva completely loses his thing. So whether you inquire into the source of the ego, or you constantly keep watching, where from is this ego coming? Constantly watching the ego, the source of the ego. They all amount to your attention kept on this I feeling. Not the I, the person, but the feeling of I, which is a more subjective feeling. I, the person, is a combination of aham and idam. We saw that in one of the previous verses. Aham and idam, they come together, a compound mixture. Me and I am this. I am seeing this. I am going there. Something or the other gets attached to this aham. So aham loses its purity in the process of this objective combination. So when you are completely cutting off the idam portion, the objective portion, and hold on to only the aham, it becomes purer and purer and purer, expands, and finally you become one with that Atman. So that's why he says that I, which is normally presenting itself to you in this waking state, this waking I, is called as aham vritti by Bhagavan, because it is in the form of a thought. You really do not feel your I, but you are thinking about the I. There is a background I, but the foreground is what catches your attention. This is aham vritti. A deeper I, when all the thoughts drop off, all the objects which are in the zone of the mind, they drop off, that I becomes aham spurti. It is a purer I. It's a feeling of I. It's a subjective feeling. And this subjective feeling at some point disconnects itself from the doer, from the enjoyer, from this ego. there is a disconnection taking place at that point in time. He does not feel attached to this ego at all. The karta, the bhokta, there is a detachment from that. It feels unrelated to that. At that stage, it becomes aham spurti. But this aham spurti has to stabilize itself. And that state is known as aham bodham. That is a bodham. That is the state of a jnani. So these are the stages. So what Bhagavan says, what Ishvara says also, thus completely remove, completely shed your thinking habits, make the mind without any thinking, make the mind still, and then abide in that state of I-ness. When you do that, then it will take you. What will happen? Only experience can tell. Bhagavan says it's a matter for experience and not for explanation. It has to be experienced. Up to that extent, everybody goes and then say that you have to do that yourself. Nobody can tell you what it is. So that is the meaning of this. This is the import of this verse. Tadgatir jayate yasmat niralokam tu chintayet. This is the 20th verse. I think there is still time for one more verse. Hetur nasti palam nasti nasti karma svabhavataha asadbhutamidam sarvam nasti loko na laukikaha. There is no world and there is no person in the world. That's what it says. Hetu, the cause. Palam, the result. Hetu, palam, karmam illai. Nothing is there, says Bhagavan's translation. Hetu, palam, karmam illai. Subhavatil, in its natural state. Odum, ivayadum, unmayala. Odum, the Vedas talk about so many things. All that's not true. Ishvara. He is saying, telling, what a bold statement. Only I think our religion can talk like this. And then we will discuss this also. Who else? Which other religion have this boldness or the courage? Because we are talking about the highest thing. Odum ivai yavum ala, he says. All these things that are discussed in the Vedas, in truth, they are not. He says, Odum avaya nasti karma svabhavataha, in its natural state. Asadbhutamidam, nothing is created. Sarvam, nothing has been created. Nasti logo, there is no such thing as a world and there is no such thing as a lokika. This is what is known as the Ajativadam. I mentioned about it. The Ajativadam, nothing has been created and nothing is destroyed. There is no one who is a person who is a baddha, a person who is in bondage, and there is no one who is a mukta. There is no such thing called as a mukti. Nothing has happened. This is known as Ajativadam. And this was mentioned by Gaudapada in his Mandukya Karika. Mandukya Karika is a seminal work on Advaita. And in fact, most of Adi Shankara's Bhashyam, if you see, he resorts to his Paramacharya, Gaudapada Acharya. Govindacharya's Acharya was Gaudapada Acharya, who resorts to this. The slokam that is, he has got for his Mandukya Upanishad explanation as, you see, this Upanishad talks about the final stage by just using your own experience, the daily experience that all of us have, the waking, the dreaming, and the deep sleep state, and then it proves the final state in an irrefutable form. Adi Shankara followed Gaudapada Acharya in toto and expanded upon it. In fact, scholars who write about Mandukya Karika and also later about the Bhashyam of Adi Shankara, they say that where Gaudapada hinted at something, Shankaracharya propounded that he expanded that. Where Gaudapadacharya propounded, Adi Shankara proved with reason. And where Gaudapadacharya proved, Adi Shankara established it with finality. The way in which the impact of this Mandukya Karika was on Adi Shankara is mentioned by the scholar in that manner. And he goes on to say that whatever Gaudapada rejected, Adi Shankara threw it out overboard, lock, stock and barrel, treated with contempt. That's what they say. So the influence of this Mandukya Karika on Adi Shankara and later the entire build-up of the Advaita Vedanta is tremendous. So that's why it becomes important. The sloka that is being quoted, Yoga Vasishtam, you will find the sloka. You will find it in some of the Upanishads, some of the minor Upanishads. This is the most important sloka where Ajativadam is talked about. Na nirodho. Nirodho means the dissolution, cessation of some activity, that is nirodha. Na nirodho, no cessation. Na chodpattihi, na cha utpattihi, there is no production. There is no manifestation. There is no creation. Na baddha, there is no one who is bound. Na cha sadhakaha, there is no one who is aspiring to become that. Na mumukshuhu, no aspirant. Na muktischa, there is no mukti at all. Ityaisha paramartata. Na nirodho, na chodpattihi, na baddhaha, na cha sadhakaha, na mumukshu, na muktischa, ityaisha paramartataha. Paramartha satyam. This is the ultimate truth, says Gaudapada. Ultimate truth. This one is Paramartha Satyam. We cannot understand this because it is being spoken of from that level, Paramartha Satyam. Satyam itself, reality itself. Such a brilliant thing that was done in our... You really compare it with other metaphysics and other things. Reality itself has been graded so beautifully by Adi Shankara. He says reality is not just reality. There are grades in this reality. One is the reality that we see in this wakeful world, Vyavaharika Satyam, Vyavaharam. This is one thing. This is one level of Satyam. We all believe in this. A waker believes in this waking world. And then you dream, and there is another world there, and there is a dreamer there. And the dreamer believes in the dream world. However illogical it sounds later on, during the dream, you never question that. The dreamer believes in the dream world. And it is all within my mind. That's what he says after he wakes up. What does he mean by that? It is unreal. My mind, because he wants to accept things that all others are sharing with him. So he says it is unreal. It was within my mind. And that Satyam is known as Pratibhasika Satyam. Bhagavan uses this Pratibhasika Satyam to prove to you that whatever you see is just an illusion. The dream experience is so very important. Bhagavan uses that constantly, as he uses the deep sleep state also. That is Pratibhasika Satyam. Pratibhasika Satyam, Vyavaharika Satyam, and there is another Satyam which is known as Paramartika Satyam. The Satyam that a Jnani experiences every second of his life. What does he experience? He experiences oneness. The Vyavaharika Satyam, we see multiplicity. And I am there, I am an individual, and there is a world around me. In the dream world, same thing. There is one, and there is a world. Strangely, within his mind, the entire world is created, and there is an entire crowd, and within the crowd, he chooses one as his own self. Notice that. He has one individual, and he connects with that individual after waking up. I dreamt this way. And he says it was unreal. That's what he says. So this Pratibhasika Satyam, or the one that is shining in the mind, because the mind is shining at the time with consciousness and there is no support from the Indriyas. Now the same reality is reinforced in the waking world with the help of the Indriyas also. They are also functioning, giving input and other things. Bhagavan says this is also a dream. There is no difference between that dream and this dream. This is also a dream. That is his conclusion. So, this gradation of reality, solves a lot of problem, because all our doubts are at one level of the reality. And then with that in as the background, we keep asking a jnani lot of questions and then try to find out how he feels about it. There was a big kacheri, there is a big concert arranged. Bhagavan, did you enjoy the concert? His arrival day, 1946, there were a lot of functions that are going on. It seems Bhagavan told, okay, whatever you want to do one thing, please don't ask me to speak. Come on a stage and speak. You leave me alone, you do whatever you want. He was a sakshi to the whole thing. Musi Subramanya Iyer, who was a great musician of his times, I believe, he gave a fantastic concert and people went and asked, Bhagavan, did you like that concert? Seems Bhagavan said, no, I noticed the beginning of the concert and afterwards I have no knowledge of what went on. And he said, I believe in Tamil. உள்ள இருக்கிறவன் எல்லாத்தையும் முழுங்கிடுறான். The one who is inside me swallows everything. All his experiences, they're all swallowed. That is the Paramarthika Satyam. There is nothing other than that. Kabalita Ghana Vishwarupa Kiranavalya. That's why he says that. This entire thing is swallowed. Kabalitam, he uses the word. That light, that effulgent light within drowns everything that goes on in the world in front of you. That is the Paramarthika Satyam. So, how do you want to talk about the creation? From the Vyavaharika level, Pratibhasika level, or the Paramarthika level? Here he says, from the Paramarthika Satyam, nothing has come about. That is the truth, he says. There is no creation, there is no destruction, there is no destruction, and there is no aspirant who wants to emancipate himself. Nothing has ever happened. So how do you really explain this particular thing? We will see that in more detail in the next session. We will conclude at this point in time. So this verse is not over yet. We will take it up a little more and then next time.
You can continue.
You want to finish, please?
Somebody can sing and then we can. Okay. So how do you really explain this creation from the Paramarthika Satyam? That is why this example of the snake and the rope is given. This is the reason. Because according to the Paramarthika Satyam, what has happened is only an error of perception. Nothing has happened. There is an error of perception. Somebody is seeing something that is unreal and he takes it to be real. And this happens in the state of ignorance. Like somebody in a failing light, he is looking at a snake, he sees something as a snake, but what he is actually looking at is only a rope. He sees a snake on a rope. And according to Mandukya Karika and according to Ajativadam, this is all that is happening in the world also. The world appears in Brahman. There is only Brahman. The only substance that is available in the entire universe can be called as Brahman. He alone is there. And whatever you see, they're all appearances. Just as you see a snake where there is no snake, you see a rope. Did snake crawl onto the rope? Is it possible to kill the snake? By putting a stone on that or taking a stick and beating that, will the snake die? And then so that you can be relieved of your fear of the snake? The snake dies only when you know that it is after all a rope. Till that time the snake will be there. There is an error of perception because of ignorance. And this error of perception has to be removed. When this is done, you call that as the dissolution. The snake is dissolved at that point in time. And the snake appeared, you can call it as creation, but it's just an appearance. So when the error of perception goes, then you will see the jnani who has removed that error of perception, he sees this world as Brahman, as only that light of consciousness and nothing else. And this is the creation. And there is nobody aspiring, there is no mukta, there is no baddha, because all these things will, at the time of realization, every one of these activities will look as though that you had a dream. That's all. How much of a credibility you give to a dream after waking up? It might have really frightened you, but after waking up, what do you say? Oh, it was all a dream. This world that is being seen by us is not real, says Bhagavan, and says all these Upanishads. Just as the world that you saw in dream was also not real for you. You yourself are saying that. You experienced it, but you are saying that. What has happened? There was a shift in this consciousness. From one level of reality, you elevated yourself into another level of reality. A waker knows that there is a dream. A waker is aware of a dream, but a dreamer is never aware of a wakeful state. He thinks that what is going on is only the wakeful state. Similarly, we are not aware of the Paramarthika Satyam. We have not woken up from this dream. That higher reality will completely nullify this level of reality. So creation is only that, and dissolution is also only that. Something wrong happened, and that something has been corrected by a jnani. When you look at it from this point of view, how does it impact us? Our aim will be only to remove the ignorance, because we are already having the final state every second of our lives. What all we need to do is drop off this ignorance. So Bhagavan says, concentrate on that. Whatever you have to get is already available with you. Again, this is something that this sweep of thought available only in our Sanatana Dharma. You are the ultimate. You have all along been thinking that you are a bound, a limited person. Remove this limitation. Vesha Hanataha. Removing the limitation is what Bhagavan calls as Vesha Hanataha. Swatma Darshanam. When these limitations go and you have this darshan of this Atman, that is the darshan of Isha also, Ishvara also. Isha darshanam swatma rupataha, he says. God is also yourself. That's what you will at that point in time. And that is the real import of this verse. So with this I will conclude. Thank you.